Like what neighborhood are you in or are you looking at?
That's where my home roots are. So I'm born and raised in Upper Indiana.
That's kind of thing that I struggle with at the time. All right, so I've got Brandon here. So tell me a little bit more about kind of like what you do in the real estate space, how you kind of got there and things like that.
Sure. So currently my family owns a real estate investment company and been doing real estate investment for like the last year and a half or so. Primarily focused on, we do have a couple of, long-term rentals currently under our belt, but we really, as of late, focus a lot on flips and doing fix and flips. So going into neighborhoods and in areas where, there may be some blight or some need for, updated homes, and trying to acquire those properties and them into really high quality living opportunities for others who are out there looking for a home.
Nice. And what side of town are you in, or are you buying in?
So we've done one flip here in Indy, but a majority of our work has actually been focused on Northwest Indiana.
Okay.
So we've been, that's where my home roots are. So I'm back, born and raised up in Maryville, Indiana. And so most of our investments as of late have focused on Gary, Indiana.
Okay, nice. So you're from Maryville originally,
Yep.
Born and raised there. You came to Indy.
Yep.
And then you ended up kind of going back and doing some projects up in Gary.
Yes. I mean, I just heard from just growing up in that area and having my grandparents lived in Gary, my aunts lived in Gary, and having a lot of family members who told me the history of Gary and just how it used to have such vibrant activity and people, history there. And now to see the city in the condition that it is, and there's some good things happening there, but you can clearly see that it's been through a lot over the last, I would say 50, 60 years. And so I want to contribute to the revitalization of the area. And that's really where my heart is at. And so I'm very invested in doing our part to figure out if it's on the housing front, if it's eventually, expanding into the development of, other commercial or retail, spaces. We're interested in that.
Got it. Okay, cool. So, I mean, likewise, I think about Gary in a lot of ways is similar to Chicago a little bit, right? So
right.
I think, like you said, 40, 50 years ago, it was a booming area. I mean, absolutely booming. You're so close to Chicago.
Yes.
So much traffic from there that just kind of spools in there.
Right.
And I feel like now we're actually kind of seeing that revitalize itself. Do you see
yes,
that?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I see that. Yeah, and so it's exciting because there's a lot of, I think, investors, and even on the elected officials side, I think that there's some people who are in the current administration who want to see good things happen in the city and continue to spur economic development in the region. And I think that it could be just great to be a part of the early onset of those investments and contributing to the housing affordability crisis that's out there, and just the inventory, the lack of high quality inventory on the market.
Got it. Yeah. So more specifically, so like I said, you're in Gary. Like, what neighborhood are you in, or are you looking at?
Sure. So we look at neighborhoods that are close to the university. So there is Indiana University Northwest. So we look in that area. We also look at some of the other areas I'm more familiar with. My mom used to be a teacher at Talaston Middle School. Okay. And so I know that area very well. So Talaston Park, it's currently a Boys and Girls Club. And so I look in that area as well. Proximity to the highways, we like to, you got 65 that comes through there and 8094. So I think being proximate to those, travel thoroughfares to, allow for people to access other parts of Indiana, Northwest Indiana, or also get up into Chicago with ease. I think that that's really one of the opportunities that's present in Gary, is that there is, this travel kind of destination, for people getting either to Chicago or through Chicago, and then also getting to other parts of Indiana through Gary.
You tell them to cut out the toll roads. That's my only thing about. I love going to Chicago, and I love being up in that side of town.
Yes.
But sometimes the toll roads are killer.
Yeah. Get to the right people to make that happen. But yes.
Yeah, you get what you pay for,
right.
Don't you? Yeah. Okay, cool. So got a few projects going on up there. How many was that you have going on right now?
So we have 2 long-term rentals, and then we have 2 flips that we just completed.
Okay.
Actually. So both of them are currently on the market and anticipated to close sometime this summer.
Okay. So do you already have a buyer for them yet? Or
one of them has a buyer under contract. The other one is still on the market.
Nice. Okay. So maybe let's do a little deep dive into the one that you're going to close soon.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you buy it? What did you pay for it? Kind of all that.
Okay, great. So we bought it, I want to say in January of this year, and we paid $105 for it.
Okay.
And it was a 3-bed, let's say 1.5 bath. Yeah, 1.5 bath home, but it was for the most part well taken care of. I think that there's maybe needed some updated paint on the exterior, and on the interior, we went with a lighter scope on this one because we knew that our margins were a bit thin for what we were requiring the property for. A bit over what we wanted to, but we were willing to pay that because of the opportunity. So we paid 105 for it. We had initially had a scope of 40 to 45,000 for the rehab, and we anticipated that we would sell it for 190.
Okay.
And so our scope, initial rehab scope, was just to go in there and to do, light touch-ups, paint work, changing out some of the kitchen features, of course, new appliances, some doors, and, really updating the bathrooms as well in the place. So we were able to add actually another half bath in the house. So we made it so it has one full bath and so two half baths, still with those 3 bedrooms, and clean out the garage and just, spruced up the place to make it that's really what you could only accomplish with $45,000 on a scope. But we did a pretty good job of it and stayed, at that budget, didn't go over, which was great. Not common for fix and flips. So we stayed in that budget and get it under contract after it was posted for just 1 day.
Okay, nice. So the market's hot up there.
For this specific, so we're learning. I mean, this specific house that we sold was in that, we listed, I think, for 189, and clearly that's a very attractive, I think, pricing bracket for people. The other one that we have that has not yet been sold or not yet been under contract is a bit higher, about $100,000 higher as far as the list price. And so we're learning and just experimenting to see kind of what's the right price point to, and kind of projects to take on in the area that the market wants.
Yeah. So this house you listed for 190. You got an offer like first stand
over asking.
Or over asking. Okay,
right.
Even better. So the competition's hot for everything under 200K.
It was, and 3 offers at that. So 3 offers, within a few hours of listing it, I had it under contract within a day.
So, and walking back, I think you said earlier that when you originally offered on it, you guys paid over what the original.
Well, the original owner wanted significantly more than what we paid. So we, we're talking to, just negotiations, and I think they wanted maybe 25, 30 over what we actually paid for it. But we were able to.
That's like 130, 140.
Yes,
is that right?
Yeah, that's where they wanted to be at. But once we found out kind of what their needs were and what they really were trying to accomplish, we were able to work it down to a reasonable point that would allow us to do the work that was needed on the home, but then also be able to exit the deal at a good, profit margin for us.
So what was their original holdup? I mean, did they just have like this number in mind, or I guess maybe walk us through I mean, you said you kind of had a conversation with them and walked them through like, hey, because I've seen what a lot of flippers do. Sometimes they're like, hey, I know you want this number, but I was like, here's where I'm coming from, and like I have to spend this is what I'm going to make. Like I'm not I'm not here to make $1 million on this, but it's a win. Hopefully it's a win-win for both of us.
And we have a rock star agent there who kind of led in those negotiations with the owner, but she knew the owner actually personally. So it was a bit of an off-market, deal that we were able to get. And, we talked to her about what her motivations were. And she had some, medical things that she wanted to address. And there was a certain price point that she had to, hit in order for that to be taken care of. And then also for the existing debt on the property to be taken care of too. So we were able to kind of come down, and I think that when you go in and kind of look on Zillow and you look on realtor.com and you see the different kind of comps in the area, and so you start to get, these sometimes, misleading ideas of what property is actually worth. I think that may have informed some initial, thoughts on what she was hoping to sell it for, but we were very, reasonable negotiations, and were able to, arrive at the price point of 105. And so it was workable. She was a win for her, it was a win for us, and allowed us to, stay within that reasonable amount of money to put out for purchasing it, to also be able to invest the right money into the rehab.
Got it. Nice. So you mentioned you kept your rehab roughly below 40,000. You actually stayed on budget. That's always impressive. I think I've only done that maybe on one project of mine.
Wow. Yeah, this is our one.
So let's talk about the second deal.
Sure.
You mentioned this one's a higher. I'm assuming a higher purchase price initially.
Actually lower purchase price. So this one was a bit of a different. So opposite. So it was a lower purchase price, but actually a larger property.
Okay.
Had a larger square footage and also a larger land. I think it maybe sits on maybe a quarter of an acre.
Okay.
So pretty some significant land that someone would be able to have for their home. So what we did on this one was we acquired it for 82.
Okay.
And, this is our first dabble into fix and flips in Gary. And so we actually went full.
This was the first one.
This is our first flip. We've done a rehab in Gary, but that's our buy and holds. But for our first flip, we actually went above and beyond in terms of the rehab scope.
Okay.
We invested probably a little bit too much. I'll be honest and say we probably invested too much into the rehab. We landed at 140 was our rehab on that.
How many square feet was this? You said
this is was 3,500.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
3 stories or just 2 stories?
Let's see, a 2-story with a full basement.
Okay.
So yeah, 2-story with a full basement. But it also, what appealed to me was that it had this attached garage, and then it also had a detached garage. And so my thought was to fix up the detached garage and let that be a functional space for somebody to park their cars in, and other storage, but then take the attached garage and flip that into, or turn that into, additional living space. So we did a full master suite, revamped master suite in that attached garage to take the property from I think it was like a 3-bed. No, it was maybe 2-bed, and I think maybe 2-bed and 2.5 bath, to now a 4-bed, and I want to say 1, 2, 3, 5. So 3 full bath and 2 half bath property. So it's a huge space, great for a large family,
I was gonna say,
or for multi-generation family that wants to live together. And but that master suite space is really nice. And I'm just
it's gotta be huge, right?
It's huge. I mean, they took master suite. You got your sitting living area and large walk-in closet and large, walk-in master bath. So we did really well with that. On the rehab front, it's just, I think that the market in Gary right now just may not yet be ready for that, type of property.
Yeah.
And so we're watching it carefully on the market right now and just figuring out what our other exit strategies may be.
So I'll just kind of give a quick story about me. It's similar to yours a little bit. So did one of our first projects, made a little bit of money. We thought we were, hot stuff. Take on this big house, 3 stories, 2,500 plus square feet.
Sure.
And it was in an area that I would say is upcoming a little bit. So it was in like Brookside Park. This was back in like 2018. So, it's kind of coming up, but it wasn't really there yet.
Right.
And anyway, we did this big project, over renovated in my opinion, just didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
And we go to list it for 430,000 was our original. By the time we actually sold it, we ended up selling for like 383. So we took like a huge dump on that. And I just remember, the one thing I kept in my head was I really need to pay attention to like what price point I'm in when I go to sell, because the question you start to ask yourself is, if you're a home buyer, is, okay, if I was going to spend 430,000, could I just build a new house? Or like, what are my other options out there?
Right.
I don't really think we thought that through.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it seems maybe that's kind of the way it is in Gary, where somebody's like, well, for maybe 200,000, I can get this instead of 300, and it's not, may not be the right thing for them, or
I think so. And I think honestly, the interest rates have not helped us. So I think that those ticks upward have made the house, of course, more expensive for a family to purchase and to buy. So we've heard that from our agent, and just from kind of the feedback that she's gotten from some of the folks that have come through the property so far. People love it. I mean, it's a beautiful space. The team did an excellent job on the rehab. I think that our price point though that we're trying to hit is probably just a little bit beyond what the market right now can support. And I think that we've learned. I mean, I actually, because that was actually the first property that was on the market. So the one we just talked about. The second one was actually the one that's under contract right now. So that one actually finished a couple weeks after the other one finished.
Okay.
But it went pending within a day. And so that kind of was an experiment for me to see, all right, what's for our next deals, like what should we begin to look for in terms of price point and where we want to actually list it, and what we can acquire it for too.
Yeah, I'm gonna say sometimes if I'm playing it really safe, I will try to find smaller houses, because in the advent that I can't sell it,
right,
I can rent it, right?
Sure.
It still might cash flow,
yes,
generally speaking,
yes.
Or I think there's other options, but like the house I mentioned is like, okay, well, if it wasn't selling for us and we have this huge mortgage, 300,000, even back in 2018, I was like, what is really going to cash flow or make sense to hold that? And maybe Airbnb, but that's a lot of work.
Yes.
That's kind of thing that I struggle with at the time. And I think for previous or ongoing projects that we're taking on, it's like, I have to really keep that in the back of my mind.
Right.
If this doesn't sell, what's my second option, or what's my exit strategy?
Yeah. And we're exhausting those options right now. It's been on the market for, I want to say, probably about 25 days or so at this point. So it's been there for a while. And you've had ton of showings, ton of visits. We have an open house coming up, so I'm hoping that will spur some offers that come through. But we'll have to see, and definitely use this as a learning experience. Exit strategies here. I agree with you that trying to get our all in probably is around 220, 230 or so, and right now on the deal, and so trying to get that finance for a rental now would be difficult in that area to cash flow.
Yeah.
And so I'm exploring other other avenues, maybe rent by the room. I don't know if that's the right area for that. So you gotta kind of pick and choose the right areas for rent by the room. But Airbnb is a no-go for Gary right now.
Is that because of legislation there, or is that
just there wouldn't be, I don't think we'd see enough traffic through there to actually make it make sense.
Okay.
I'd be interested, to run some. I haven't looked at it, done the kind of background like data analysis, but I'd be interested to see if it does, if you have different softwares out there, AirDNA and everything else like that. So I can see, but I don't anticipate that there's that many folks looking to do a short-term stay in Gary right now. I'm much more like long-term or home ownership.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking on the rent by the room, so one of our properties, we kind of do that. It's actually up in Lafayette, so it's
cool.
A different market entirely. But what we kind of found is, listed on Airbnb, and a lot of times you'll find people that, they need a few nights, but then they're like, hey, I actually could stay, and I could stay for a month, but you kind of get to see how they are for a week or so, and then decide if you want to put them on like a longer term contract.
Oh, neat.
So we found that actually worked pretty well, because we've got, in our case, I think we had like 2 electricians, another guy was a car salesman, right? So it's not like these are, people you may not want to rent to. It's like you get to kind of feel them out for a week.
Right.
And it's kind of like, you kind of get an idea, you know what I mean? When you kind of meet somebody for a week, you see, like, do they keep the room clean?
Sure.
Are they nice to everybody else in the house?
Right.
And so that's worked fairly well. I mean, I won't say we haven't had some surprises with some people, but just an idea.
Nice,
obviously, I think it, in a lot of ways, like Gary could be potentially good for that. I'm sure that area probably the best.
Yes. But. Yeah. Well, yeah. Of course, the number one option is to sell it. Like that's ideal. But like, I'm also beginning. I'll add that to our considerations as we think about next steps and figuring out kind of what works best for this one. But yeah.
Do you guys have any hospitals up there, or like some of the bigger hospitals?
Yes. Yeah. There's South Lake, or actually North Lake Methodist is close by. I don't know how close it is to this property, but yeah, we do have that hospital up there.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, I mean, I know you want to sell it, but I'm just saying, furnished finders, which is for, travel nurse and things like that.
Right.
I don't know if it's furnished. Is it furnished? Maybe it's not furnished.
No, it's not furnished yet. Well, we have it furnished right now just for showings. But yeah, that's a good thought though, I guess I've been thinking about that, like, the midterm or medium term rental space. My thought initially when I first, found out about it was that, like, I forget what they call them, the trauma level 1 hospitals were like really the best ones for that. And I don't know if I would have to say that I think North Lake Methodist is probably a trauma level 3. Okay. So I don't know if it's that. Yeah, but I'd be interested to see, is there a demand? So just talking to folks around the hospital and seeing if that's even in demand there.
Yeah, I mean, I think somewhat of a free way, if you want to like maybe look, is just go on the furnishedfinders.com. I don't think you have to pay to look on there and just see how many listings are around there. And I usually feel like if there's listings, then obviously there must be some demand. And then if you want to get really, into it, you can start to call these people and say, hey, when is this available? And start to, be like that.
Yeah, see, if someone's booked out for the next, year and a half, like, all right, I might have
you might be onto something.
It's a good thought.
Yeah, it's funny for us because, I mean, in a lot of ways we're the same way. I mean, we have a lot of hospitals in that, but I was like, I don't know if this is going to work or not,
Right.
We had done Airbnb, and long story short, I just, the number of times I get called in the middle of the night for, I don't know, this or that, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Because some people make really good money in that space.
Right.
Like, they'll make twice what they make as a standard rental, or, whatever. And I never got there. I maybe had 1 month where we would have doubled what we would have made as a rental. And I was like, I don't see where these people are getting these numbers from. They're
like, yeah, that's what I heard as well. So that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, I mean, if you're successful, please show me.
No, we'll see. I mean, I heard that the midterm or medium term rentals are like maybe 1.5 to 2 times what you get in rent, but then Airbnb, I heard, is like 3 to 4 times.
Yeah.
But we haven't dabbled in it at all to know if that's true. And we have one rental up there in Gary, and we just do a long-term rental on that one because it works out well. We have great tenants there. But it'd be interesting to see. Yeah. Medium term or short term. So
I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's always one of those challenges. But of course, if you can sell it and then take that.
Yeah. And then we kind of like stumbled also, like just like our story, part of our story, we kind of stumbled into flipping. Like we wanted to do a lot of small multifamily at the very beginning of our real estate journey. And
like are we talking like
duplexes, triplexes, and kind of using that to catapult into, larger, multifamily deals in further down the line. And last year we actually bought, read a whole bunch of books, listened to a whole bunch of podcasts. Like, I'm just going to dive in.
Yeah.
And so we bought a duplex in what area is that? It's on the north side of Indy. on Capitol Avenue, about 32nd and Capitol Avenue.
Mapleton Fall Creek?
On the other side, yeah, just on the other side of that. So yeah, I guess in that general area, right by Crown Hill Cemetery,
Okay.
and so I guess you call it Crown Hill,
Okay.
just south of Butler Tarkington. And
Okay.
so 32nd and Capitol, beautiful duplex, got it for a really great, what I thought was a great cost. And I was kind of looking at the IU Health investment coming down the pipeline. I was like, this is a great area I want to be in, buy and hold this thing. Got in there and had had to fire our first contractor. And then
let's go on that. Like, what happened?
Yeah. So hired him and thought that recommendations from an agent we were working with and thought that was going to work out well. And, guy just ghosted us. I mean, did a little bit of we want him to do exterior work and also some interior work, pretty significant scope. He was going to do about for 65,000, I think.
Okay.
And so, but got in there and did some of the exterior paint work. But then when it came time to kind of move the ball forward on the other interior work, just he ghosted us, like no response. We respond maybe after a couple of days and say, we're kind of busy, and just very kind of hit or miss communication. And we needed to move fast on this deal. I mean, it was our first kind of dabble into real estate, so I'm just expecting that things are going to move a little bit quicker than they were. And so we were maybe 2 months in from when we had purchased the property, and this guy still had not made progress on moving forward with the scope. So I'm like, all right, we could fire him and move on and find somebody else. So we got connected to another contractor, and this guy was very much more responsive, much more on top of the response game. But when it came time to actually finishing the project, it just wasn't a good relationship for us to have. And, we got a ton of change orders at the end and just hit. I mean, and so we were already at almost the finish line, like the 5-yard line. And so we're just like, we want to finish this thing. And so at that point, it didn't make any sense to hire another contractor. It's like, we just got to stick with this one and just invest what we need to invest to get it across the finish line. And so we did that. And by the time we finished everything, though, we had invested so much into it that it no longer made sense to try to hold it or to refinance out of it. So we felt like our only exit strategy at that point was to sell it. And so thankfully we sold it, made a little bit of profit on it, but came out clean, which was a good thing. Came out clean from what we had put into it, and took the lesson, on the chin that, just being much more, I think, diligent in your contractor kind of review and interview phase is really important.
Yeah. What was the interview process like for you, or was?
I took recommendations and said all right, this person's, good to go. Like if this person is recommending them to me, then I trust that they're going to do high quality work and, be responsive and be on top of it. And I just I appreciate recommendations now, but we do a lot more thorough review of this person, looking at their references and referrals, talking with them about kind of their approach to having a very thorough process of identifying kind of what are the steps to get us to the finish line.
Yeah.
And than we did before. So.
I was gonna say, a little bit in my experience, it's like when I have a new contractor, I always try to give them like a couple small tasks.
Okay.
Like ideally, right? So it'd be like, if you have enough projects going on, you can give them a couple small tasks. Like, hey, in your case, it was like a $65,000 renovation scope. I would say that's probably a fairly large scope of work.
Right.
And I would try to give them something like, I just need you to paint the house. Or like whatever, like, can you just show up and paint the house?
Sure.
Because in my experience, even some of the best contractors, like you give them this list, it seems like. Right. And I just think they get overwhelmed. Yeah. And which is understandable. It's a lot. It's always a lot of work to do. Right. And I just think they got other things going on. We're not paying top dollar most of the time anyways. We're not. Right.
In that level.
At that level. And so I don't think we're necessarily at the top of their priority at times.
That's a good point.
So I like to try to kind of make sure that relationship works a little bit before I give them something bigger. So
you got to try that. That's a good suggestion for future deals here. I mean, we feel like we have a rock solid team up Northwest. Like we have a great team up there. They do excellent work. I think here, if we were to do more investments here in Indy, we'd definitely be, looking to like those type of approaches to just get a feel of kind of the capabilities of this team, and are they responsive? Are they timely? Do they stay on budget? For even the smaller tasks. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and the other thing I was just thinking when you were mentioning that was, I even so much as like to give them like a spec sheet, right? This is what I call it a spec sheet. So if you're painting, I expect you to paint, the outside this color. It's from Sherwin-Williams or it's from PPG or wherever.
Right.
before you do that, you need to prime with this. Like, I really like to break it down.
Good.
And then if it's not in there, right, that's on me. That's what I always say to myself. Like, if I didn't tell you, or if it's not in writing, that's on me. Right?
Yes.
Another thing I always try to do too is at least, I preferably go to the job site at least once a day if you can, which I know is a lot, but I have found, times like maybe a contractor started to do tile work and I was like, no, I didn't, like, not that way. Like, or like, I had one who was getting ready to start a shower and they didn't put the waterproofing on, like the wallboard. And I was like, no, you can't start. Like, you have to put that on. I was like, I'm not.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just glad. Yeah. My point is, I'm glad I didn't get to that point because, like, I hate having to tell a contractor,
sure,
you got to rip this out.
Yes.
Right. It's frustrating for me.
So you go to the job site every day?
I try to, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So like we just had we're doing like a tenant turnover right now, which this is a bad example right now, but they started yesterday and I wasn't there. So today I was like, I need to go because I need to see if what they're really doing is what I expected them to do. And I just don't want them to get too far along in that process.
Sure.
And then have like, that's like the worst. Yes. And then,
we had that on this house too. So the house that we did here in Indy, on Capitol. Yeah. We, thought that the contractor was, staying on top of it and, I just came in there one day just randomly and saw that they had the tile that we had picked out for the shower actually on the floor.
Oh, it was not cheap tile, was it?
No, it was not. So yeah, that was quite a scene for them to come in there and tear that up and get it right. So that was another instance of that same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where I got it from like Jay Scott from Bigger Pockets.
Yes.
He was talking about it one time, or somebody in a chat was like, my contractor screwed up this tile job. This ironic was another tile job.
Yep.
And, he responded, Jay Scott was like, well, were you there when he was prepping? Were you there when he was laying the tile? Like, basically, you weren't there. Then like, this is your fault.
Right. And sometimes you'll have contractors who will not disclose the full truth to you. So like, even on this deal we were just talking about in Indy, we tore out, it was a complete gut job. So we tore out everything. And we needed them. We were making some new kind of living spaces on the exterior, or on the kind of exterior facing of the house, and we needed them to add in some insulation. And there was one time I was inspecting it, and they had already begun to put up drywall. And I was like, wait a second. There's no insulation behind here. And so we had to actually ask them to go back in and to take out that drywall and to put in the insulation that I should have known from jump that we were going to have some challenges further down the line with this team if they were trying to cut corners like that with not adding insulation to a new living space we were putting on the outside exterior facing of the house. So
that's strange. Like, it's so easy to put insulation in. That's
just really, strange, the corners that we're trying to be cut. But you got to stay on top of it, and if you can't be there, regularly, you got to find a way to get downloads from what's actually happening on the ground there.
Yeah. I can't agree anymore so much. It's so true. So what are you doing now, right? Like, I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but your day job, I think, also sort of revolves around the real estate space too.
Yes. So I work for a community development financial institution, and so we do affordable housing, retail, commercial, grocery financing work across the country, and especially here in Indianapolis. And we also invest in a host of different, community and economic development programs as well. Workforce development, health work, safety and justice, community development, all types of community development stuff that we do and invest in here locally. So it's a good balance for me to kind of see the different needs that are present across communities that we're serving here in Indy, and also bring that same kind of comprehensive approach to development to the work that we're doing in Gary.
Gotcha. And how long do you say you've been doing that for now?
About 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
Be a decade next year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's been like the most memorable of that experience, having that?
I think just, knowing that the work that you're doing is really impacting and transforming lives on a community level, and being able to, back in, I actually started my career with this company in New York. And so had the opportunity to work there during Hurricane Sandy, if folks remember when that happened, back then, way back then. And so just being able to connect this meaningful work that we're doing with actual residents. I had a chance just to talk to people who were receiving grants, who were receiving loans as a result of some of the program work that we were doing. And just knowing that some of those conversations stick with me even till today, just knowing that this is having a real impact on someone's life, helping them recover from one of the most devastating storms that has happened in their lifetime. And then also being able to do some work here where you're making investments into communities that are giving people better places to play, to live, to work, and to, have fun together.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't agree more. It's like, I guess a few times where I feel like I really provided, value to somebody who like really needed it, and you just see how much they cherish that.
Yes.
Like there's no amount of money that can like cover that or any, that's always one of the things you're just like, you wake up and you're like, okay, I did something right today.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We get it. We have the chance to leave, work every day feeling really good about, the work that we're able to do and support we can bring to partners. So
gotcha.
It's really neat.
Cool. All right. Well, that's that part. Just maybe one last thing before we round up. Like,
sure.
Where do you think you're headed now? What are your goals?
For real estate. So on the real estate front, we have a goal of doing, so we're still new in this journey, so don't judge. But we're had a goal of doing 4 flips this year.
Okay.
So we're 2 in, and we have 2 to go, and I think we're getting pretty late in the year. But
you still got like 7 months.
I mean, but I think that I'm looking at it as like the timeline to get there. We'd have to, I think, begin to acquire, some newer properties middle of the summer at least, and also being able to sell them the later you get in the year.
It's more difficult.
Down. It slows down. So we actually sold the one in Indy that we bought and flips. We sold that one probably right at the end of when the high buying period is. I think we maybe sold it and closed in September, October of last year.
Okay.
Yeah, we closed in October, I think. So we maybe finished it listed in September. But like after that, it's just downhill in terms of interest in the market. So we want to close on at least 4 flips this year. And we also would love to get another small multifamily under our belt, just like as a buy and hold.
Gotcha. Like a duplex or
duplex, triplex. We'd love to just begin to build out some more our rentals. So our thought process is to focus on flipping right now to build up some capital for our company, and then take that capital and then pour it into maybe a turnkey small multifamily, just to be able to have some diversification on our portfolio and to do that. But over the next 10 years, our vision is to have $200 million of real estate under our belt in the next 10 years. So I think we're on track for that. That's my optimism, but I think that we're taking the right steps to kind of build up from there. And I think that I've studied the, stack method. So I think, that's also informing kind of the way that I'm looking at building out our portfolio. And we're using 200 acres of tree farm that's been in our family for generations as our leverage to be able to launch our real estate investment. So we've no mortgage whatsoever on that property. So we're able to use that and to leverage that to actually get us a kickstart.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I remember you talking about that.
Yes.
Yeah, the tree farm.
Yeah, so 200 acres of tree farm and $200 million of real estate, hopefully in the next 10 years.
Yeah, that 200 acres, $200 million. I like it.
That's the goal. So
10 years for the 200 million. The stack method we were talking about is kind of like what I think Brandon Turner outlined, where you buy one house, then you buy 2, and then you buy 4, and then, 8, 16, 32, and it goes up like that.
Yeah. So we actually, our family owns a home there in Gary that been in my family for generations, and so we actually flip that into a long-term rental. And so that was our one property in our belt last year. And so this year, hopefully we'll get our duplex or our triplex, and then hopefully double that, next year.
Nice. So are you going to be looking for on-market deals, off-market deals, or mix?
All over. I'm studying off-market deals right now, like how to find those deals and, like strategies you can do to, do that. I mean, we have a great team there in Gary, so I'm not too worried about finding those deals off-market in Gary. But I think here locally in Indy, which we do want to do more deals in Indy. I think that's something I'm studying to figure out how to break into the off-market space.
Yeah.
In Indy.
I'll just leave with this, but I feel like I've done both. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I probably bought more off market than I have on market.
Okay.
But sometimes I feel like off market it'd be a little trickier. It sounds weird.
Yes.
Than doing on market, just because there's a certain process, when you go on market, even with an agent. So even if you have an as is sale,
right,
you can go on there, you can make an offer, right? And then you can be as is, and then you find something, right? I mean, you can actually like get out. A lot of times in off market deals, like you have to put the deposit down.
Yes.
And that's like, you're not getting that back. I mean, absolutely not. So there was like one story for us, it was a little bit ago. We were buying a house, and for some reason it said 5,000 was the deposit. And then they were like, oh no, it's 10,000. We're like, no. I was like, I'm not giving you 10,000. I'll put down 5,000. But I was like, I'm not giving you 10.
Wow.
We kind of went back and forth. I think it was kind of a misunderstanding. It was like, well, we didn't know you were using a hard money lender. You guys said cash, whatever. And I was like, you can't just change the rules, but whatever. So it was an interesting experience to kind of like, sort of learn that and sort of, but
Sure.
I think a lot of times, like a contractor, if you kind of can stand your ground,
yes,
and you know what you're talking about, like,
yeah,
you know, one story I had was a contractor was like, oh, we're going to change out this bathtub. It's going to be like, I'm going to buy this $1,400 bathtub. And I was like, why? He was going through stuff, and I was like, no, I was like, you can buy a bathtub for like $399 from Home Depot. I was like, here it is. It's a right hand. It's acrylic. Like I knew kind of knew my stuff. And he's like, well, we have this copper. And I was like, no, just run PEX. I was like, it's like $50 a roll. I was like, stop trying to like overcharge me.
Well, that's good. It shows that, like, the importance of being educated and just knowing your stuff up front.
Yeah.
So you're not taken advantage of. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a weird thing because then he kind of like his original price, and he's like, okay, well, I'll do it for X. And at that point, I was like, I don't even want to hire you because like you said, what change order am I going to get?
Right.
At the very end,
right.
I'm just going to be like you're trying to get done, and he's like, well, I need this. And, you know, there's a little bit of headbutting.
I understand that you have some overhead that you want to, of course, you got to, also be able to live and put food on the table as well for your family. But, to take advantage of somebody to charge maybe 2 times the amount, or what we have 2 or 3 times the amount that it would actually
what it should be.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I get it. There's a little, they got to make money. We're trying to make money.
Right.
We're just trying to develop a good
relationship. But everybody has to win in that situation. So you trying to, take advantage of me is not helpful. No, to that equation, So I think it's about like finding, to that negotiation point you were just raising. I think it's about finding what are their motives, what are their end goals, like what are they trying to accomplish, and finding a workable arrangement that makes sense for everybody to be able to survive.
And partner. For the long term.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Awesome.
Sweet.
Well, thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate the conversation.